You're now watching two old farts making noises.
Hey, and we're back. For some reason, when I do that, I feel like a DJ from like the 1960s. Like, hey, we're back. Hey, spin the record. What do you want to win? So, well, before we start, I think the first thing we have to do is say congratulations to Brown Car Guy.
Thank you. Oh, thank you.
The Brown Car Guy has got 25,000 subscribers and over 3 million views. That is excellent. Now,
6 million.
Wow.
6 million. I'm sorry. I was drinking the last couple of months. But I will say this, and so we're clear. And I told him this before the show. All of his success is due to being on our show. So you're welcome. Of course, everyone knows. But no, that is awesome. We are so happy for you. Huh?
I'd like to congratulate you as well, because I think you're going to be the next contestant on Strictly Come Dancing with all the dad dancing. Or as it was in the US, I think Dancing with the Stars. I mean,
Dancing with the Stars, yeah. No, I don't think I could ever be on that, because this is why I use all these fake AI things to make myself dance, because I can't actually dance in reality.
Yeah, neither can they. I don't know if you guys have watched the show, but they can't dance either, so it's fine. You'll be fine.
Yeah. No, but the fact that here is because it's got pretty high though nowadays, to be honest.
Yeah.
Well, it's true. Maybe I should say the US version. Well, there's some good ones in the US, but like the first round is always shite. So it's, you know,
well,
you can just go out in the first round.
And for the people that don't know what we're talking about, people who don't, the Brown Car Guy has got a video of him dancing. Well, it's a cartoon of him dancing.
I'll send you the clip, and then you can insert it.
And we'll put it up, and we'll attach it for everybody. But it's for 20.
Dancing with
that's the one. That was the dance. But first of all, I got to thank you guys for obviously giving me that boost up, and getting me to and secondly, I've got to express extreme jealousy because Stephen, you're heading over to my old stomping ground, my old home, Dubai. Yes. So I'm like, oh man, you're gonna have so much fun there.
I'm hoping with all the unpleasantness going on in the region that yes, it'll as talking to the people I have to travel with, we're all leaving Monday morning and we're flying actually from Dulles, for the people that know what that is, into Qatar, and then into Doha, from Doha into Abu Dhabi, and then we're gonna have a driver drive us over to Dubai. Because we figured that'd be kind of cool. So we're doing that, and everyone's like, maybe we should have just flown direct.
It's a dull drive. It takes about an hour and a half. Dubai
it's all desert.
And the thing is, it's flat desert, because that part of the UAE is flat. So the other part of the UAE, which is the east coast, which is adjacent to Oman, that side's stunning because you got the Hajar Mountains. So you got mountain roads and you got landscapes and stuff like that. But the road from Dubai to Abu Dhabi is just flat desert. So there's literally nothing there. But the good thing is that they've put the speed limits up there. So the speed limit, you can do pretty much 100 miles per hour on that road legally. So
legally, okay.
Yeah, legally. So that's the legal limit. You can do that. So that's fine. So that's just to get that out of the way quickly. But yeah, I mean, you've touched obviously on what's going on there. First of all, I can pretty much assure you that you don't have anything to worry about going to Dubai. But secondly, it's just honestly, you don't. Sometimes I watch too much news. I really do, and sometimes it's like I don't know whether I need counseling or therapy or whatever. It's just so depressing, and it's just so sad, and your heart just weeps for all the tragedy that occurs, to anybody on every side. It's just reprehensible, and you just sometimes you just lament and wonder, like, how does humanity do this to humanity?
Well, I will say there's an interesting article yesterday and one again this morning in the FT and of course the Economist, and it was saying that when Hamas attacked Israel, it said the apathy of the Arabian world was with Israel. It's like, no, you go kick their ass. They shouldn't have done that. It was sort of like, what the hell? Like we're getting along, kind of, but it's like all of a sudden, and so it was sort of like, no, go do what you got to. And now I think it's Qatar and the U.S. and Saudi is saying to Israel, let's not go crazy now. Let's not escalate this into a regional thing where everybody's going to go crazy and try to kill each other. They said, let's it's down, we're done. And it's just, I don't know. I understand, like I read, I understand what everybody's doing and fighting, but enough's enough.
I can understand the Arab abhorrence at, and outrage at what Hamas did, because, and this is it. And just if I can in any way, and I'm no scholar, I'm no religious scholar or anything like that, but if I can just in my tiny way try to clear up some of the misconceptions that are out there. In Islam, and as in most religions, and in fact most historical cultures, there are clear etiquettes when it comes to war and to battlefields, and these have been laid out centuries ago. And specifically, it actually does say in the Quran that it is not allowed to attack women, children, and non-combatants. So again, the field, the arena of battle is defined as it used to be in the past, and that's where the battle would take place. To do stuff like going into people's home and just killing women and children, it's not only is it abhorrent, it's not even allowed. There is no justification for it on any level whatsoever. And of course, now we see the other side of that, where entire buildings are leveled. And again, you just can't even begin to think of the sheer tragedy and catastrophe that causes on communities on that side as well. So it's just absolutely terrible, really. Somebody better start talking, because I think I'm going to start crying.
No, that's we'll. But I agree with you. It is terrible. I really hope that we can, at some point, all get along, because it's just the pictures that are coming out are horrific. The articles and the reporting is great, but still what they're reporting is horrific. And I know that, like, I've talked to people that are over in Qatar, and I've talked to people in the UAE, and they're like, everyone feels okay because it's going to be, right now it's just there. But they said this goes on for, everyone's like, if it goes on for a couple of months, we'll see what happens. But I mean, Saudi wields a big sword, and so does Qatar and Omar, the rest of them. They all wield big swords, and Iran, I'm assuming, is the one who sponsored it, because that's what everybody's saying in the press. But I wasn't there, so I don't know. But it's sort of like, you don't really want to piss off like the 5 or 6 toughest, regional, for lack of a word, families in your region. It's not going to fare well for you. And I don't think people think ahead. I think they think literally of, listen, tomorrow at noon, and then no one says what happens at 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
So, it's like, and I think a lot of these people don't remember, in the 60s, the 6-Day War, where like the whole Arab world came to Israel, and it was like, no, we'll just go kick your ass. And they did. So I think they forget that Israel, for as small as it is, the people there are kind of like the people from Brooklyn. They don't forget. It's like, I still have friends' fathers to this day that won't watch the LA Dodgers because they remember when they were the Brooklyn Dodgers, and they're still traitors, and they should all be, shot. Like, so, that's 60, 70 years ago, right? Israel's the same type of place. They have that kind of memory. And I think it's,
what you just said is just reminded me, because I was actually just reading about this the other day, because it put me in mind of it. And this is not to, people might think, I'm just trying to belittle the whole thing or whatever, but I'm going to go back to my old favorite Star Trek, and there's that episode in there, of course, which is a very famous episode. Let that be their last battlefield. And that's the one that people remember, where the faces are painted, half black on one side and half white on the other side. And the two tribes are at war. And the only reason they're at war is because the paint is on the opposite side, or the coloration or the pigmentation is on the opposite side. And other than that, they're entirely the same race. And again, that kind of sort of, it brings back the sort of view on what's happening at the moment. It's like, they're all the same people. We're all the same people. Just looking at, it's interesting what was said at the end of that show, because the show ends with them, rowing and fighting on the ship. They're rescued on the ship, and they're both there. They're just at each other. So the Enterprise takes them back to the home planet, and they find that the home planet is dead, because they've warred and warred and warred, and they've destroyed each other. And I think it's quite interesting that Spock says all that matters to them is their hate, and Uhura says to Captain Kirk, because I do suppose that's all they ever had, sir. And he says, no, but that's all they have left. And unfortunately, I do wonder if that's where we've got to, because it's one of those things where really, if we could see beyond, if we can see beyond the hate for the, what was it, the LA Dodgers, or what you said?
Yeah, well, they used to be the Brooklyn Dodgers, and then in the '60s or in the late '50s, early '60s, they moved to LA, and that was like, oh my God, that was how dare you? And there's people still in Brooklyn today that if you go the Dodgers, they're just like every explicitive that you can use.
God.
They will use, because it's like they left. It's you can't. New York's a funny place. I guess it's like the Middle East. It's like they have long memories. They don't you know what I mean? They do remember, and it's still like I have friends today. I can't watch the Dodgers. I'm like, okay, it's like I don't really care if they left. They're not that good. Vicky, you have to be.
I think this is the key thing: is this focus backwards that we have. Unfortunately, is what's holding us back as a breed, really. Because until we stop looking back and start looking forward and going, this is where we were, this is where we've been, and it's been pretty bad. But until we look at where we can go together, we're not going to move forward, unfortunately. And I think that's kind of the rut that we're stuck in at the moment.
Everybody
looking backwards. I was sitting watching CNN when I came back from my holiday with some Dutch people who had obviously not been not really seen CNN, I suppose, as such. You really got to dig for it on Dutch cable to find it. And somebody walked in and they said, "Well, it looks like an entertainment program."
Wow.
The news coverage, because it reminded me of the first Gulf War as well. Which sort of put CNN on the map. So you've got this very, very strange way of presenting news. There was that very satirical show in the UK called "Drop the Dead Donkey." So they're always looking for these sort of the most awful of shots to make, and people were amazed here. They said, "Well, what is this news? Is this entertainment? What's this supposed to be?" And the general consensus was it was slightly distasteful. So I'll be quite interested to know other people's thoughts on that.
I will tell you, they call it news and entertainment now. There's no such thing as news anymore. It's news and entertainment. I think Bloomberg, because we watch Bloomberg all day, but Bloomberg, if I'm not mistaken, is the only thing that doesn't call themselves news and entertainment. Bloomberg says they're financial news, and that's it. Where CNN is a party, CNBC is a party, Fox is, I don't know what the hell Fox is. BBC, I think goes either, the BBC News is still to me very much the BBC News. I think it's good. But before we go on, Vicky, you got to say something for all the 14-year-old boys out there, because you have a raspy, husky voice today, and we were joking before the show that you're going to be doing all the voiceovers this week. So say hello to your fans, and so all the 14-year-old boys could be like,
Hello, everyone. I have a cold. This is not on purpose. Maybe it should be. I don't know, but I'm getting over the whatever crap I caught in Vegas. So who knows what it is? It's
well, what happens in Vegas stays there.
I thought what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. I thought
that's what I thought.
There must be something really strange. There must be something really strange happening in the US, because Stephen's head has got extremely small, and his hands have got and arms have got longer and bigger. I mean,
He's like Attack on Titan. He's one of those weird anime figures that.
I updated my. I don't know. I updated my iPad to 17, the new version of whatever this is, and that's what it did. If this is too weird,
hands,
I have. Let me explain. You know what? If you have big hands, you know what that means, right? So,
you've got to zoom out.
I don't know how to zoom it in, but you know what I can do.
Yeah.
Can you tilt the front forward? Do you have it like tilted?
Wait. Here, let me watch that.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the most professional show on the YouTube at the moment.
I mean, this is what happens when you do a show with two old parts, like the
Wow.
Yeah. One of which is
I don't know what happened.
Has shrunk. Oh, there we go.
There you go.
Oh my God.
I don't know. I mean, it's
Well, I
No,
don't know.
I feel like
now there's two of them.
I've
you
got
need to-
Stephen.
It's like
I've
tribbles.
got
Shazad, it's like
Stephen
tribbles. It's like
bookends.
multiplying.
There you go.
Yeah.
Is that better now?
Stephen
Do we feel better?
bookends. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. But I mean, the small head and the long arms and the big hands were
Well,
a little bit.
the
I
reason
thought,
I did-
thought maybe
I-
you
the
turned
reason I
into a
did this-
lizard, actually, Stephen. Since I've been on
Lizard
holiday.
person. That's definitely something out of Star Trek: The Animated Series. I think that's what that was.
Yeah.
I think that-
Definitely.
Well,
the
he's
reason I
looking the
did-
wrong way now. So Over
the
here,
reason
Stephen.
I did
There we
the
go.
big
Hi there.
hands.
there we
the
go.
reason hello. The reason I did the big hands is because you know what they say about guys who have big hands. I did that for all the female.
Yeah, big
fans.
gloves.
Right.
No,
Yeah.
not true. Yeah, big gloves, and that's the end of that.
Big gloves. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
And it's easy to pick up. It's easy to pick up bananas and that sort of stuff. You know.
That's it.
I think are your arms extended as well? Are they so your knuckles scrape along when you walk, Stephen? Or is this an evolutionary
I'm
thing?
Wow.
I'm not that old. I'm old, but I'm not that old.
I mean, I've been on holiday for a couple of
Paintings
weeks. You know,
much?
anything
You
could
know,
have
They
happened.
discovered some cave
it
paintings
raises
in
an
Italy.
interesting question. It raises an interesting question because obviously now, apart from virtual, I've not met you guys, but I
That's
assume
Yeah.
that Steve and David have met each other physically at least.
We have
No,
not.
never. No,
No way! Seriously?
no. He's
Seriously.
yeah. I'm in a coma, and he haunts me.
Have
That's what
any
it is.
four of
David's
us
an
ever
avatar.
actually
David doesn't
met?
actually exist.
No, it's just I'm in this coma, and all of a sudden I'm in this sort of shows, and got this
Fever dream of
this
some
guy from-
kind. Yeah.
got this guy from New York who keeps shouting at me. You know,
So
it's
hang on. So none of the four of us can vouch for any of the others actually being real and not AI constructs.
Nope.
Correct.
that's right.
We don't really know how long Stephen's arms are. They could actually be that long. We
They are
can't
that long.
say.
No,
It could
very
be at least
cool.
a week long.
Hey, look
or
at
2
let's
weeks
just so we're clear. Keep this in mind. You can get bookends if you keep it up.
Oh my god!
long. Oh,
All right, back to this one.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So yeah, no. So we haven't met, and that's probably because you're not supposed to, meet your heroes.
that's true. So
Yeah.
it's
You
funny.
know,
I had
uh,
several layover.
We've never
choices
seen
to go
Stephen
to-
and David in the same place, so
That's
they
right.
could
don't-
actually
yeah.
be the same person.
Yeah.
Well, it's only one of it's only one of us in this coma. No, I mean it's no room for two of us.
It's true. We've
So
never
one is-
met, but
one
I had
is
several.
the dream version of the other. Is that how this works, or is this?
I think so.
I hope
Or
not.
something?
I hope not. I used to have wet dreams. I don't know what this one's going to be. I mean,
Yeah,
come
this is not
on.
a wet dream, my friend. So, this is the real
For
world.
anybody
This is a
ever.
this is a dry and crusty dream. This one.
Oh my god. No, we have not. What's interesting. What's interesting though, on my way to the UAE, I had several layovers I could have done. I could have done one in Amsterdam for like 5
Yeah.
hours. I could have done one in the UK for 5 hours. So instead, I chose the layover in Washington, D.C. for 5 hours and then fly right into Doha. So,
There you go.
but it was funny because when I was looking at the layovers, I said, well, I could meet David if I go to Amsterdam. I can meet you.
You'd
Yeah.
been in
And what's his
transit,
name?
wouldn't you?
If I go to the UK, and I'm
Yeah.
like, this will be perfect. And then all of a sudden, people are like, yeah, but if we do this flight, we'll go. But I'm like, all right, fine, we'll go that way. So that was it.
Oh man!
The worst
Next time.
thing is that Stephen and I live in the same city and we haven't met.
That's true.
No way!
We have no excuse.
Except
we don't really like
and
each other.
Rachel. And
There's a
Rachel.
restraining
Rachel
order.
is in the same city.
This is
There's
both
a restraining order as well,
fascinating.
Vicky.
This
Yeah,
is
that's
both
true.
fascinating
That's true.
and kind of sad at the same time.
This
Because
is-
is this where we're heading to, where physically people no longer
Yes.
meet? Do you know what I mean? That's
It's fine. I'm antisocial. I don't like it anyway. I don't ever want to leave my house ever.
Come on, at least you guys should meet up for a coffee or something. At least. I mean, come on.
We
Well,
keep saying we're
Rachel
going to
and
meet to go do some cryotherapy, but we haven't done it yet.
Because we're waiting for Rachel to
I
set
think
up.
that's
Now,
probably
Rachel.
date number 2, isn't that?
Right.
Cryotherapy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what we're going to do.
Yeah,
We're going to get
they freeze you.
cryotherapy. But Rachel and I have met. So her host, one of her hosts from Social
Right.
Intercourse, and I, we have physically met at Hilga's House of Pain. It's a long story, but we have video. Anyway, so we have met. And then,
She's not here to confirm whether you're real or not. So I'm still
well,
a little.
no, I mean, there's a reason for that.
That's
Yeah.
true.
So I'm an
That's true.
avatar.
Yeah.
It's great. You think
Yeah.
you thought AI was way off. This is what AI does.
Look at this. This is incredible. This is
These are what my psychiatrist calls what crossover trauma. This is, so it's like I moved from one reality to the other.
Wow, you are crap at picking realities then, because you could have had something else.
All right, this is the best you can do.
No, I see. I wanted you, Vicky. That's what it was. But I had to go via Stephen and the Brown.
I mean, get in line.
Have you guys seen that Bruce Willis? It's Bruce Willis movie, isn't it? I think it's called. It's not called Avatar because that's the blue people, isn't it? But there's another.
Yes.
It's a Bruce Willis movie where he's an avatar, or he's an avatar of himself, or something like that, right? Have you seen that? That's just,
so it's called Duplicate, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, Duplicate,
I saw it about 6 months ago because we talked about it on another show. And what it is that people are living in a pod, and then they put their avatars out on the street.
Yeah.
And there was a murder committed. So instead of him sending his avatar out, he goes out physically into the world.
Yeah.
And his wife, for some reason, is having an affair, but it's avatars having an affair. So they're looking at it's like they're not having an affair. And I'm like, maybe you are. But yeah, so it's a fascinating movie. It's done maybe 15 years ago, but it was really cool.
Huh.
I've seen it like 3 or 4 times.
It's like The Sims, kind of like, sort of.
Huh?
So it's like little Sims that go out, like the game, the Sims game, where they.
Well, no, not little Sims, but in real robots, for lack of a better term.
Real robots
for you. Like you lay in like we'll say a bed, and you're all hooked up. And I'm just say my robot is Brown Car Guy. He comes out of his little cocoon, and he goes and does in the real world. I stay in my little cocoon and have him do whatever he wants, and then he comes back and boom. But they show this hot chick as an avatar, and then they show the person controlling it is this guy that must be like 750 pounds and really and so it's these people that want to have a fantasy because they can't do it in real life. And then Bruce Willis's whole thing is, I want to do everything in real life, not as a I guess avatar / robot.
And the thing is that even Bruce Willis's avatar, even his robot, was a better looking version of him. So it was just slight, it was subtle, but it was there, and it was very interesting. And in a very strange, roundabout, many detours later way, we kind of come back to the actual topic of discussion that we were supposed to be having, which was about
topic.
And the thing is like this situation of how societies are developing, and are we ending up in a scenario where we won't interact with each other. And the reason that, when we talked about this episode, Stephen and I said, should we talk about multiculturalism? And I want to know how it resonates over there as well. Because the reason that was foremost in my mind at the time was because we have a home minister, interior minister, if you like, over here, Suella Braverman, who herself is of an Asian, Indian, British origin, gave a speech. And in the speech, she said, multiculturalism has failed. And then many other people sort of pointed the finger and said, well, hang on, aren't you an example of how multiculturalism has actually succeeded? Because, you're in the cabinet, So it was this sort of thing. And I was like, well, I mean, it was a controversial statement. There's been lots of, discussion over it and stuff like that.
But how did she see herself then, Shazad?
Well, this is the question.
Right. Why would she say?
Does she think that she's like Margaret Thatcher clone or something? Or is she not?
Maybe she's an avatar. I don't know.
There you go.
I mean,
maybe she's actually white. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. She just sort of,
I mean, this is what I would like to know. I'd like to know how it goes over there as well, because over here it's a really weird thing that you have these people, and she's not alone, because we've had another minister in the Conservative government, Priti Patel, was before, that also seems to have this notion of ranting and railing against migration and immigration and all this sort of stuff. I mean, we're not going to get into all of that, but the point being is that if you're ranting against something that you yourself benefited from, then how do you reconcile that? You know what I mean? It's like how can you say multiculturalism has failed when, because of multiculturalism, you have risen to the post of being a cabinet minister? When we have a brown prime minister right now, when we have a brown first minister of Scotland, I mean, then how can you say that multiculturalism has failed? So it's an extraordinary thing. What's it
Well,
like?
What's her example as to why she thinks it's failed, or did she give any sort of context as to why? Was it just a blanket statement, or did she say it failed because of this, or because we have that, or what's
I think that
what's her
I think
reason?
I think the Conservative Party is it's a bit like the sort of, I would guess, the Republican Party over there. They're kowtowing to the lowest common denominator, if you like,
to their base.
And where you have this feeling or this passion of coming over here, taking all our jobs, all that sort of mentality that you have. Then if you pander and play to that, then you kind of like trying to I mean, some people say that she's parrying for a future position as the prime minister. So it's one of those things, isn't it? But you could understand somebody, say an indigenous person, saying something like that. But then when you have somebody who themselves is supposed to be a shining example of how this country does accept, and embrace all cultures and all people, then how can you say something like that? But again, going back to David's point, it's like, how do you see yourself then? Are you looking in the mirror each morning and thinking, oh, I'm so white? I mean, I don't understand.
Yeah.
Right.
What's happening there,
I mean, it's a bit like Trump, ranting and raving about people of color, but whereas himself is orange. I mean, where does that leave us?
That's a whole category. That's a whole different category.
I mean,
he's an orangutan. It's a different species.
What's all that about?
The thing is, when you talk about, like, we hear when they go, people take the jobs, they stop that already, because what happens is when immigrants come over, and whether they be from Mexico, whether they be from Asia, Europe, South America, you pick it. They do the crap that people here think they're too good to do. They don't want to be busboys. They don't want to pick up garbage. They don't want to do. So no one says they're taking our jobs anymore, because that's if someone says that, and then you're like, so do you want to go pick up trash? That ends it. So. And coming from New York, all we know is multiculturalism. Like every block is a different culture.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it can't really.
Yeah, but the whole of the US is built on immigration.
Yeah.
It's the only people there, the indigenous, indigenous tribes.
It's strange, though, to kind of get back to Shazad's point a little bit, is we have Republicans who are of color and have risen, and they seem to, I always question, how are you in a party that does everything to keep you down? How do you vote against your own best interests? How do these people get elected in traditionally ethnic neighborhoods? There's a whole thing about gerrymandering and all that kind of stuff, especially in Texas. But there are people who will vote for the candidate who tells them their shit, or who oppresses them, or who whatever. And I never really understood how that thinking works. Even with women, like a lot of women will vote for these conservative men who just want them to stay home and have babies and whatever, and that's a bad thing. But like, it's a very much, they'll vote for Trump, and I never understood women that voted for Trump. So I to your point, I don't get, like, I know they're pandering to their base. I don't get the base that buys that stuff that's not white, or white male or something like that.
The other strange contradiction, it makes perfect sense. And I completely understand exactly what you're saying. Because the other strange contradiction that exists in British politics, for example, is that you have the Conservative Party and then you have the Labour Party, which are the two main parties. So Republican and Democrats, similarities in cross-Atlantic comparison. But with the Conservative Party, so with the Labour Party, traditionally, that's been the party that immigrants have always voted for. The people who come over, they voted for because they thought that they had their best interests in heart, right? But if you look at, for want of a better word, the texture of the party at the top levels, then you find that the Labour Party is still pretty much, old white guys. And the Conservative Party is actually the one that's given us our first brown prime minister. That's the one that gave us our first female prime minister. Margaret Thatcher was conservative, So, and throughout the cabinet, there have been a multiple, there's been an Arab in there, there's been multiple black people in there, there's been, Asians in there, so all of a sudden you go, well, I myself, as somebody that historically grew up in a family that would have voted for Labour, I find myself very conflicted and confused about the whole thing, because I'm like, well, you have one minister saying that multiculturalism has failed, but yet the party itself is a shining example of multiculturalism, because you've got everybody at top minister cabinet level. What's going on here? And it's really kind of hard to reconcile.
Does she know what multiculturalism means?
Yeah.
I mean, like full stop.
Your speechwriter put it in there, right? So
Yeah.
I'll just read on the card.
Yeah. Well, she said other things as well. I mean, we're going to stick with multiculturalism, but she said, there was another contentious thing that she said. What did she say? Something along the lines of the hordes of immigrants are coming in. She described them, and this word is actual quote. She described them as a hurricane that's about to hit us. Which again, pandered to that lowest common denominator.
Which is factually wrong, of course, because they're always going on about people going into the UK on boats, but there are more people who come in through other means than come in on the boats. Yeah. But the thing about it is, we go back to our TV channels who have their camera crew waiting on a boat waiting on the beach in Dover. It makes great TV, and it panders to the public. Oh, look, here they come. They're taking all our jobs. Really?
And going on, and again, referring back to what Stephen was saying, what you just said about jobs, David, and what Stephen was saying earlier with the whole job issue. And again, I don't want to open the can of worms that was Brexit, but, when we had Brexit and when we stopped, the Europeans coming over, and then suddenly all these farmers were like, well, hang on, we used to hire all these people from Europe that would come over and do, fruit picking and tomato picking or whatever. And now nobody wants to do it. Because in the country, they're like, oh, well, you want to go and do this job? No, nobody wants to do it. No, nobody wants to do it. So
in California, that's what they do. It's all the immigrants, and I'm not picking on anybody. So if you're going to send nasty cards and letters or comments, address them to David. The Mexicans come up every year from wherever they come up, and they work in Southern California, and they pick almonds, avocado. I mean, like everything. And I remember they were interviewing the farmer, and the reporter's like, so I don't see any like white people or black people. He went through like everything. He says, I only see Mexicans. And the guy says, that's because they're the only ones that'll come here and work.
Yeah.
And it was sort of like, that was it. The interview was sort of like, at that point, they reported like, oh, okay. It's like, because they're saying how everybody comes and takes the jobs. It was one of those stories. Like, look at all these, 200 Mexicans taking American jobs. And the farmer's like, nobody wants to do this. He says, high school kids don't want to do it. College kids don't want it. He went through the whole thing. He said when his dad started the farm 100 years ago, he said you'd get high school and college kids every season because they needed money. Yeah. He said, and then all of a sudden they became better than that. Yeah. And they want to go do whatever. And that's it. I don't know why there's balloons in my phone.
You keep giving the thumbs up too. It's really cute.
Do I really? I have no idea why.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
but this is a very good point, and not to cast everybody in this brush of people just being laborers or something working on farms. But in the UK, we have the same situation with the NHS. I mean, the NHS, which is a national health service here, which was actually founded on immigrants coming over and making that thing work, And now we have a massive shortage. I think it's like over 1 million shortage in the NHS of doctors, nurses, and consultants. We have a shortage. And again, but we've closed the doors and we're saying, oh, you don't want this hard. But it's like, but there's qualified doctors. And the weird thing is that the doctors who qualify here, they will want to leave the country because they want to get better paid jobs in Dubai, for example.
Right. Well, here's what's really funny, though. If you're a doctor and you come from like Russia, Poland, Dubai, you pick a country and you come to the States, it doesn't count. Like you have to go through school again. Like I know a lady from Russia. She was an attorney, like a big time attorney over there. She moved here. And she's like, I have to go back to law school. And I'm like, there's got to be some sort of test that you can give someone and like a 40-hour or maybe a 1-year thing where you take it and you're like, oh, okay, I get it. But so when a lot of them come here, if you didn't go to a medical school that kind of makes you pass the US, whatever you have to pass to be a doctor, you're screwed. And the other thing is, if you look at a country like Poland, their prime minister about 2 weeks ago in an EU address said, which I applauded him and I was shocked at the same time. He goes, we don't want your doctors. We don't want your lawyers. We don't want your laborers. We don't want anybody coming to our country. We don't want anybody. He said, and we don't have any problems in our country. And I'm thinking, you got a lot of problems in your country, but okay. But he's like, but we don't want, and he went through this list. He goes, we want nobody. And I was like, okay. Like, that's pretty cut and dry. It's kind of like, yeah, good luck with that.
A lot of the Poles here, came here.
When you say Poles, money. Do you mean like a Pole people take or like Polish people? You got to really clarify that. So.
Polish people. They, they worked hard. They got the money. They got the qualifications, whatever, and they've gone back to Poland. You know, and good luck to them. Really hardworking people.
Yeah.
But the other thing, sorry, Vic. Yeah.
Oh, that's okay. My grandparents came from Poland and they left because it was awful. And they came to the US and they started a farm. And I've been back. I wouldn't move back. I'm glad that, but the Polish people sort of became the laborers of, especially, the UK, but a lot of Europe. They were the workers. They were the ones doing all this kind of, manual labor or the construction or whatever. So it's interesting that they're going back.
Yeah. And they were a great part of and they're the butt of every joke, which is awesome. I mean, it was great when I was growing up. Polish jokes. It was the best.
I know. I heard every single one growing up. Yeah, it was great.
Did you hear this? Did you hear this one though? Did you hear why Polish people spell their name SKI?
You know what, Stephen? Don't even that
because they can't spell toboggan. Anyway, go ahead.
So who we offended?
I'm sorry. What was that? I couldn't quite hear.
Vicky, just so you know, I am number one in many people's books.
Let's talk about something really serious that's happening in Poland. They've just ordered a shitload of South Korean tanks and armor. Because they say that there's not enough in Europe, and they don't want to be dependent on Europe, and they want to have an independent army based on hardware coming from South Korea.
That's a nice way to say we don't trust NATO, we don't trust the United States, and when Russia comes again, like they did in the 1930s, we want to be ready. That's literally what they're saying in the nicest possible way.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and I don't, I'm like Shahzad, I'm not a scholar. I don't know the subtleties of all this, but just thinking, it's kind of like if we draw a parallel to Israel, if you get invaded every time there's a war in Europe, if you get taken over and your borders keep changing, I can see where that comes from, where they want to have their strengthen their own army. But, I don't agree with the guy that's in power over there anyways. That's a whole other ball of wax. But, okay, South Korea, they have a, maybe when I go back to Korea, they'll, I'll tell them I'm Polish instead of American and I'll get treated better. No, I don't know.
He's just been there this week, the South Korean prime minister, and they've treated him, got the red carpet out, the whole shebang. So,
yeah.
We're talking again about wars and stuff, and I want to again.
No, we're not talking about wars. We're talking about armaments.
We've gone back into the area of conflicts and how that impacts how people live and what they do and stuff like that. And again, this inability that we seem to have to move beyond that and to reconcile the differences.
While prominent politicians talk about multiculturalism, we just keep dragging this up. Time and time again.
Yeah. That's exactly the point, isn't it, David?
We're all people, aren't we? We're all people. Yeah. Who cares what color you are or where you come from?
One of the things I'm very grateful for in my life is that I was born here in London, and when I was about 10 years old,
I'll let you off.
Family moved to Saudi Arabia. Now, if I by having that difference of world outlook and living in a different place and meeting people from other cultures and stuff like that, I think that really shaped my way of thinking, rather than if I had just grown up in that area in the middle of London, I would have had a different sort of thing. I know London is very multicultural, but still, but I think, and then living in Dubai, where you're going to be going, Stephen, one of the things that struck me about Dubai was that how there are people from all over the world in Dubai. Dubai is kind of weird. The UAE is weird in that the indigenous population is actually the minority in that country. It's only 30%. 70% is actually expats, So it's an incredible example of how people from all over the world come together and they just get along and they just work together and they just build stuff and make stuff and do really cool stuff together, And I think that's one of the great takeaways that I had especially from the UAE, Dubai in particular. And it was a perfect example of how you can create these societies where it doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, or what you did, but you come here and you work together and we make cool stuff happen, and that's what happens. And I think that, if you could take that as an example and then spread that around the world, I think we would be, living in a very different world. But I think we've got to be able to see, again, I unfortunately, I keep quoting from Star Trek, but you take the Vulcan philosophy of Star Trek, and don't forget all of this came from the main writer himself. And he goes, one of the Vulcan philosophies is infinite diversity and infinite combinations, the IDEC, as they call it. And they said this is the glory of creation, is infinite diversity and the ways that our differences combine to create meaning and beauty. And I just, just part of me wishes, perhaps I'm just being a naive sci-fi geek, but part of me wishes that if we could spread this message around the world and understand that, if we just all learn how to come together, we can make things better. We can just do better stuff all around,
I agree with you 1,000%. Unfortunately, the four of us who probably think that way, there's 7.9 billion other people and some other numbers that probably don't. And I'm sure like half the population would love for everybody to get them. Don't. That's why I think the Saudis are building Neon, the futuristic city in the middle of nowhere, kind of like the UAE. Like, let's build a city here. This is good. Let's sand. It'll look good, right? And that's what Neon's supposed to be. So I think the utopias, the governments are realizing we need to have them. And I think they're trying to do it. Like if you look at Thailand, everybody gets along in Thailand and there's a whole bunch of expats, right? If you look at all these certain countries, it just seems it's like our first world countries where we seem to have these little issues, or where they're fighting a conflict that's like 25,000 years old. It's like, let it go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, look, I don't want to be rude or anything, but you're not the Brooklyn Dodgers.
So. We should be concentrating on really, really important things, like building roads on the moon. That's what we do.
Yes, right. Colonizing Mars with Elon Musk.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. No,
well, as a kid, I used to watch a show called Space 1999. I think David might remember that show. And this was Jerry Anderson. That's right. And I thought that as a kid, I thought Space 1999, we're going to have a moon base. And here we are in 2023.
Well, we are because the first thing they need roads and they need flat structures. And now I heard this morning on the radio, so it must be true. But they're going to be firing in the next 10 years. They're going to be firing lasers to the moon to turn the space dust into paving slabs, so they can make platforms and roads so you can move around the moon.
The firing lasers.
That's interesting because they just said that there's a wobble on the moon from the lunar lander that's interfering with its path. Or it's caused a wobble.
Neil Armstrong said that the first 2 or 3 inches was a lot of dust, and that dust can be with extreme heat. They can make objects out of it, paving stones they want to make out of it. Which will enable them to make structures so they can make landing pads, and takeoff pads, and also walkways and roads. Check it out. NASA's into it big time.
But wait, when the astronauts landed on the moon,
which was in fact Arizona.
Whatever. When the astronauts landed on the moon, they said,
"Here we go."
when they landed on the moon rang like a bell for an hour. So there's a hypothesis that the moon is actually a space station / sphere, more than it is actual. The other problem I have with the moon, the Earth, and all the other planets.
I've been to that hotel, but I've been ringing on the bell for an hour and nobody comes.
But that's an hourly motel. But it's just
after
everything
all.
is round. If you look at meteors and all this other stuff, they're not round. They're different. Like every planet's round. Yeah. Come on. Like I don't know who designed this game, but at least make one square. At least make one like a like have a little creativity.
It's the board.
It's a nice game. Yeah. I know, but it's like, the moon. If you believe John Lear, has space bases, and they've got pictures that show stuff, and NASA cleans everything up before you see it. So I think flying lasers at the moon, they tell you it's for roads. It's probably more of a defense thing because they're afraid of what on the moon. So, I'm just saying it just seems, we know what they tell us.
This was on the
there's
BBC
aliens now. Who knows what they're doing up there? Like,
that's right.
They've lied about the bodies. We know now.
On the BBC News, how can it ever be that a news program would lie to me? So I have to accept it as being true.
I mean, there was a movie, wasn't there? I can't remember the name now, but there was a movie where they go to the moon and they find out that it is inside. There is just a ginormous structure inside, you know. And they
No, it's
Oh,
actually it's a Kinder
MST3K
Kinder
did
egg,
that.
isn't it?
What
That's
was
what
it
it
Well,
is.
there's a
Oh,
Jules
giant egg.
Verne's. There's a Jules Verne's book about that where they go to the guy goes to the moon, and like 40 years later they go back, and when he came back he said there's these structures and there's this and there's that, and people are like, you're lying. And then all of a sudden they go back and it's live on TV and they're in the structures, and that's kind of how the movie ended, and kind of like the book. But unfortunately, and this is a dialogue we can have a little bit now, we can do a whole nother show on it. The governments and the churches or the religions are worried about one thing. If you find out you're not alone, whether they're interdimensional, they're from the bottom of the ocean or other universes or wherever they're from, you're no longer a Pakistani, a Brit, a US, a Polish person. You know what you are? You're an earthling. Once you become an earthling, your government cannot control you because now there's something bigger than you. And that's the mentality that they have. That's why they don't want, but now, and we talked about this before on this show and other shows, everybody's got a phone, right? But everybody's got a phone. So now I can record and show it to the world, which is what's happening even with Loch Ness Monsters and Bigfoots and all of it. And now you also have the government coming out talking about Skinwalker Ranch, and that the Defense Intelligence Agency actually was there for 10 years. And they talk about the strange phenomena about creatures coming through holes, and that this is like all now the government's saying, yes, it's all true. And what is amazing about this to me is if this was 20 or 30 years ago, it would be on the front of every newspaper, regardless. Now, nobody cares. It's like, it's almost like, yeah, we know it's true. Nobody cares. That's why I keep saying, when a UFO finally shows up and says we're here,
what we really care
no one's going
about,
to care.
Stephen,
Yeah.
What we really care about, what's really important is whether or not we can get tickets to the new Taylor Swift movie. That's what we're worried about. If, and the rest is wars. Who gives a monkeys?
Well,
where are my tickets? Where are my tickets to Taylor Swift?
Well, David, going back to what you were saying earlier, and I think that, and combining what Stephen is saying is the fact that we've become numb to these amazing events. Going back to like what you were saying about the first Gulf War, the first time that was the first time that war was televised. If you think of
live, yeah.
And at the time it was a shock. It was just like it was just shocking. Everything about it was like, whoa. But now, like you say, now that we're seeing what's happening now, and they're showing that they show here's a missile, here it hits the building, and the building, and it just feels like a video game.
Yeah.
It just feels like a movie scene. You don't know. The mind has been programmed to go, oh, that's on a screen. That's on the screen. That hasn't happened to me. It's on the screen, So, and I think that this is the problem. And until we start to understand the real consequences of these things and what's actually happening, I don't think that, we're going to be able to improve the situation. And I think that, again, going back to, what you're saying, Stephen, about, realizing that what's out there in the world and the fact that we will all become earthlings, even as and you're right, that, institutions such as religion and politics hate this sort of stuff because it means that they'll lose control. But even as a religious person myself, I'm like, I'd love that to happen. I'd love it to happen because it would bring us all together. If nothing else, it would bring us all together. But the thing is that, again, being a nerd, I'm going to go back to Roddenberry again. And I think that this is actually quite true what he said. If we cannot learn to actually enjoy those small differences, and again, this is going back to our conversation about multiculturalism, if we cannot learn to actually enjoy those small differences, to take positive delight in those small differences between our own kind here on the planet, then we do not deserve to go out into space and meet the diversity that is almost certainly out there. And I think that is a very strong point.
Yeah, I agree.
100%.
And what's interesting is everybody is so fascinated with what's out there and what's going to come when they show up. That's multidiversity. Because theoretically, if you think about it, we're all human beings, right? We've got two arms, two legs. We all look alike at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Right. But when the lizard people show up, or the guys with big heads show up, or this or that, that's multidiversity, because it's not like I can walk down the street now and go, oh, I wonder what Vicky is. I wonder what you are. I don't care. You're a human. I'm good. Now I'm going to see lizard people. I'm going to see this. I'm going to be like, okay, I wonder where they're from. Who are? Yeah. Then it's a whole different thing, right? So we can't even get along together.
Yeah.
What's going to happen when we have to, like, everybody's like, let's meet them. And then there was a guy from the CIA that he got interviewed a couple months ago, and he said two things.
Yeah,
he said,
I
one,
saw that.
right? But he said, be careful for what you wish for
Yeah.
when they finally come. It may not be what you think.
Yeah.
And he said, and number two, in 2027, something huge is going to happen in this space.
Yeah.
And he said, those are the two. I think I sent you that article, right? So he said, those are the two things. He said, people keep forgetting. You're wishing for something. You don't know what you're wishing for. And after reading some of the stuff and hearing these guys at the DIA talk about what they saw at Skinwalker or Skywalker Ranch, I'm like, yeah, maybe we should just we want the friendly guys, not the guy crawling through the hole in the middle of the sky.
Professor Stephen Hawkins said the same thing, because he said that, that it would actually be a bad idea if they did find us. He said, we keep sending out all these probes with directions. We're here.
We're here.
This is a bad idea, because if they're advanced enough to find this stuff, then they're advanced enough to completely consider us like ants, like we're nothing to them, So, and if you see a planet full of researchers, whoa,
And to your point too, then instead of us all getting along, does it become they're the new white half of the face or black half of the face, right? So now all the humans are getting along, but we find somebody else to hate. Right. Yeah. So, we still suck.
Sadly, Vicky, I wonder, Vicky, if that is what we need as humanity. We're constantly, or not like as individuals, but maybe politicians believe that people as a whole need a bogeyman. And this is why we create animosity.
Well, that's human nature. But beyond politics or whatever, we are ethnocentric beings who favor, our own individual selves. So we're always going to put ourselves first. That's how we survive. So you have to have that enemy to.
But you don't really like seriously. If somebody lands tomorrow, like I said, if people that aren't there was an interview with some guys on YouTube about Skinwalker and all the reports, and like they said, they see a dog that stands on its hind legs and runs and does whatever. He's like 6-7 feet tall, smoking cigarettes with a trench coat. I mean, like nothing. They see these huge lizard eyes in trees. They see all this stuff, and
I told you I was in a coma. I mean,
I know. But my point to it all is just like
all joined you.
Right. But my point is, so as we talk about multiculturalism and you have to have a boogeyman, but why do we have to have a boogeyman? Why can't, like, if tomorrow, whether it's the lizard people, the dog people, or whoever or whatever shows up, why do we have to have them as our enemy if they're friendly?
Yeah, because there's a group of people, a group of humans on this planet who know how to manipulate the rest of us. And they do that by inserting as much fear into our lives as they possibly can. And they manipulate.
There's a great book called The Culture of Fear that talks about that. It's actually specifically refers to media, but it's a really great book that talks about, that we are all sheep for the most part, led by fear.
I say that to a lot of people. 85% of that, and they're happy. They're just happy to go with the flow.
We're happy sheep. We're grazing or whatever, and then the sheepdog comes along and says, "There's a wolf over there. Y'all need to go." And then we run and then we run to the next field. Yeah.
Talking of sheep, the really good news is there's a new Shaun the Sheep movie coming out. Thought I'd get that in.
Oh, Shaun.
Oh, a Chicken Run as well. No, Chicken Run movie coming out.
I think that's a very good point. That the fact that if we like I said, as we were talking earlier, we're all the same. If an alien did land here, he'd be the one that looking at us going, "I can't tell the difference between you because you all look the same to me." And that's ultimately that would put the focus back on us and realize that actually we're all the same. And even when you meet people, you work with people, where you're able to work in a truly proper multicultural society, then you realize at the end of the day, everybody is just the same. Everybody just wants the same thing. They just want, a peaceful existence for themselves and their family, and that's all they're trying to do. That's what everybody's trying to do. And ultimately, I think if we could figure that out, we would realize, as Steve says, that we don't need a bogeyman at all.
Yeah, I think Aretha Franklin said it best. RESEPCK.
Oh God.
And that was it. I'm not going to sing it. She's right. That's all you need. As we used to say in my neighborhood, everyone's a human being until they're not.
That's great, Stephen. But you're talking to a dyslexic, so it didn't mean anything to me. Whatever that's ABGFCY.
Yes.
YMCA.
All the way to Z. Yeah.
YMCA. Yeah. I think Shazad, you got to do that next on one of your movies.
YMCA. And as we're getting ready to say goodbye to everybody, Mr. Brown
Goodbye.
Car Guy.
Oh, sorry.
No, not yet. Mr. Brown Car Guy
Oh.
will be back with us next month. He does a show with us once a month. That's A. B, don't forget to subscribe and like. And congratulations again
Social
Fred,
Intercourse.
on your. We'll get you there. Hold on.
Yeah.
I'm congratulating him on his 25,000 subscribers
Yes,
and 6
and I'm one of them.
million views.
Thank you.
Follow him on
So-
Instagram. Follow him on YouTube.
Yeah, we follow you on Instagram everywhere. We love your he's
Yep.
are the best.
Yeah.
And then we want to thank Vicky from Social Intercourse. Their show airs every day on our channel or every Tuesday on our channel.
Every
You
day.
can't
Oh
miss
my
it. It's-
God.
Every Tuesday, every day. I don't. I'm been drinking heavily.
It feels like
I'm getting
every
ready for my
day.
trip. I know, right? They're every Tuesday. Subscribe and like. There's 3 beautiful women, and they talk about They talked about fetishes last week. God knows. And multiracial dating and a whole bunch of stuff. And
I
all I
just like-
realize
and
is
I
that
just
they're
like to
very
say-
strange.
I'd just like to say I've stopped following people because of the restraining order. But
Yes, Steve
Well,
can't follow
you know,
anyone.
it's a fever dream.
David
It's the
has to be
fever
at least
dream.
50
Yeah.
yards or 50 meters away now from everybody, so he's only allowed
Yeah.
to meet them here. So yeah, that's how
in
it
this
is.
coma, in this coma.
In this coma. All right, boys and girls. Everyone, thank you for listening and watching and putting up with our nonsense. Please comment below if you want to be a guest on the show and you have something to say that you think is worthwhile and you want to be on the Sermon from the German. By all means, drop us a note. Vicky, we will see you next time. David, next time. Sherrod, always a pleasure, my friend. And
Yeah.
David, take us home.